Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jai Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamanatira Vanachari. Yamanatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mitapad Paramahansa Purajikacharya Astotar Tadashishiman Divine Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Purajikacharya Astotar Tadashishiman Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, can we crack that door open? Just hold it open. 6 inches. Okay. So I've been asked to make this announcement for our YouTube listeners. Hare Krishna, everyone. All our classes are broadcast on both Zoom and YouTube simultaneously. Our YouTube video description has a link and instructions on how to join the Zoom meeting for all our classes. Please join the Zoom meeting to ask questions or make comments during class. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Okay. Now. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 9th day of February 2021, SanDiego, reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Chapter 7, entitled Knowledge of the Absolute, text number 20, on page 329 in one of the printings. Text 7:20. Kamais taistar kutagana. Kamais taistar kutagana. Prapadyante Anyadevataha. Prapadyante Anyadevataha. Tam tam Niyamamastaya. Tang tang Niyamamastaya. Prakritya Niyataksvaya. Prakritya Niyataksvaya. Kamaistaistarvatagana. Prapadyante Nyadevataha. Tang tang Niyamamastaya. Prakritya niyatak swaya. Karmaisthaiस्थai ratagyana. Papadyante nyadevata. Tang tang niyamamasthaya. Prakritya niyatak swaya. Karmaisthai ratagyana. Papadyante nyadevata. Tang tang niyamamasthaya. Prakritya niyatak swaya. Karmaisthai ratagyana. Papadyante nyadevata. Tang tang niyamamasthaya. Prakritya niyatak swaya. Kamai, by desires, tai, various, rita, deprived of, jnana, knowledge, papadyante, surrender, anya, to other, devataha, demigods, tam, corresponding, niyamam, regulations, astaya, following, prakritya, by nature, niyataha, controlled, swaya, by their own. Translation. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. Purport. Those who are freed from all material contaminations surrender unto the Supreme Lord and engage in His devotional service. As long as the material contamination is not completely washed off, they are by nature non-devotees. But even those who have material desires and who resort to the Supreme Lord are not so much attracted by external nature. Because of approaching the right goal, they soon become free from all material lust. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is recommended that whether one is a pure devotee and is free from all material desires, or is full of material desires, or desires liberation from material contamination, he should in all cases surrender to Vasudeva and worship him. As stated in the Bhagavatam 2.3.10. This is the verse Prabhupada just gave the translation for. Akama sarvakamo va mokshakama hudadadihi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Less intelligent people who have lost their spiritual sense take shelter of demigods for immediate fulfillment of material desires. Generally, such people do not go to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they are in the lower modes of nature, ignorance and passion, and therefore worship various demigods. Following the rules and regulations of worship, they are satisfied. The worshippers of demigods are motivated by small desires and do not know how to reach the supreme goal. But a devotee of the Supreme Lord is not misguided. Because in the Vedic literature there are recommendations for worshipping different gods for different purposes, for example, a diseased man is recommended to worship the sun. Those who are not devotees of the Lord think that for certain purposes demigods are better than the Supreme Lord. But a pure devotee knows that the Supreme Lord Krishna is the master of all. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 5.142, it is said, Ekale Ishvara Krishna ar samabhritya. Only the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is master, and all others are servants. Therefore, a pure devotee never goes to demigods for satisfaction of his material needs. He depends on the Supreme Lord, and the pure devotee is satisfied with whatever he gives. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshurun Midatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. Okay. So, this verse is also often quoted. Srila Prabhupada quoted this verse very often. And it follows this key verse, Bahunam Jamanamante Gyanavatma Papadyate, that amongst those who approach Krishna, the pious, right, the impious, they fall into four categories. And they do not surrender unto Krishna. Namam Dushkritado Buddha Papadyante Nararama. Na Papadyante. They don't surrender unto him.
and they're dushkritinas. Now Prabhupada would describe the dushkritina means that they may have very great skills, intelligence, and so forth, but they use it for serving the lower self. They're controlled by the lower modes of nature. So he would always give the example of the scientists who built the atom bomb. I don't know if you know the history, but there was a whole project, the Manhattan Project, during the war, to build a bomb before Hitler got it. And all these leading scientists, led by Robert Oppenheimer, they worked, and although there were hundreds of them, the secret never got out. The secret got out when the bomb blew up in Alamogordo. That was the first bomb. And Oppenheimer was a dabbler in the Bhagavad Gita. Did you know that? And he quoted a verse when he saw that first atom. But they weren't sure. It might have blown up the whole universe. They thought it was by some calculations, but we got to blow it anyway. So they did, and it was very impressive. But it didn't blow up the whole universe. But it was very scary, and he was reminded of the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Kalos miloka chayakrit pravidho. Time I am, and I become destroyer of worlds. So he quoted that verse, or thought of it anyway. So, but he may have been a dabbler in the Bhagavad Gita, but he was a dabbler. He didn't understand the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita, and so he falls well into this category, Maya Prita Jnana, that their knowledge is stolen away by illusion. And then there are four categories who do surrender to Krishna, or approach him anyway, out of curiosity, desire for some benefit, some material benefit, artarti. The artas, who are simply suffering something, that's a very big category. People go to God. And those who are truly in knowledge, and they really want to be enlightened. And Krishna praises them in two wonderful verses. And then he gives this seminal verse, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Mapapadide, that after many, many lives of cultivating knowledge, those who are truly in knowledge, they surrender unto me, knowing that there's nothing beyond me. Vasudeva is everything. And then, but on the other hand, this is how he goes back and forth, those whose knowledge has been stolen by material desires, kamais taiste, unlimited variety, they surrender to other gods, and they're controlled by their own nature, whatever combination of modes they're in. They worship some gods that worship Durga for material things, like Shiva, the sun god. Prabhupada refers here to the verse in the Bhagavatam 2.3.10, Akama Sarvakamava, which he doesn't give the whole list here, but there's a whole list of different gods and goddesses you can worship to achieve some material benefit. If you want some beautiful wife, you worship Uma, I think, or maybe it's the wife who worships Uma, I forget. But it's there's that. For health, you worship Surya, and on and on and on. For strong sex desire, worship Indra. There's a whole list. But then at the end of that list, then it comes back to akama sarva. But whether you have no material desires, in other words, you're a liberated soul, or you're full of all material desires, those who are udaradi, whose intelligence is truly sharp and broad, even if you want moksha, your worship render intense. This word tivra is important. Tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param, worshiping the Supreme Person, Krishna. And why is that? Because one who is truly intelligent understands that all these material desires are actually impediments. They're keeping him bound. And so one can, if one worships Krishna according to the bhakti way, not for some material purpose, or whatever purpose, and you may be full of it, but if you approach Krishna directly, worship him intensely, chanting his name, meditating on him, and doing all the things we do, then those desires will be sublimated. Whatever desires you may have, they'll be purified. The desire for moksha will ultimately be dissipate. Nadanam nadanam nasandani. And all the other desires. So that's if someone is truly intelligent who worship Krishna. And as Prabhupada points out here, Ekale Ishvara Krishna Sabhabritya. I've just been reading the Adi Leela. This is in the Adi 5, which talks about the glories of Nityananda Prabhu. And Prabhupada makes Krishna's Kaviraj makes the point there, and that Nityananda and Advaita they took their greatest pleasure in just considering themselves servants of Krishna. But when you really understand, both of them are Vishnu Tattva. Nityananda is Balaram, and Advaita is Mahavishnu. He's on the Vishnu platform. They're said to be an incarnation of a devotee, and Nityananda is the expansion of a devotee of the pure of Krishna. So, but they're taking their pleasure in serving Krishna, and even Krishna himself wants to get that pleasure, and so he comes as Lord Chaitanya, right? In other words, that's where the real pleasure lies, in humble service to Krishna, And so, for all us living entities, and that understanding is what informs our entire practice. This is a society built upon that understanding. Anyabhilashada shunyam jnana karma janavatam. That pure devotion is defined as that which is not covered or adulterated by any other desire. And he gives a summary, a real kind of little sutra. Jnana karma dhyanavitam. Jnana means desire for liberation. Karma is everything else, all of our material desires. And adi, whatever else you may come up with, desire for siddhis or yoga, Basically there's three categories. The karmis, four. There's what is it? Bhukti, Mukti, Siddhi kamis. Bhukti kamis are the ordinary materialists. Their desires may be within the different modes of nature, but it's all personal, material, gross material. And then there's the Siddhi kamis, the yogis, which are after these subtle, amazing powers, smaller than the smallest, greater than the greatest, walk on water, astral travel, whatever. And then the moksha kamis, mukti kamis. But they're still kamis. They're still desirous of their own benefit. So all of them we reject. We simply after anukulena krishnanushilanam bhaktaruttama. So pure devotion is simply working for Krishna's pleasure. There's a nice phrase, I referred to it, this is a class I gave, the Zoom class, that in one of the Sandarbhas, Jiva Goswami, it's quoted in the first canto, I believe, somewhere, in purport. He says, here's what devotion really consists of. Bhajaniya padama purusha sukha matva swasukatvam. The word matva means only and solely and only. Bhajaniya padama purusha, the worshipable Supreme Lord, Krishna. Bhajaniya padama purusha sukha matra, only his happiness. Swasukatvam, taking one's own pleasure only in the happiness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And I like to point out, and this came up in a discussion of the Dashamula when we get to the point of Achintya Beta Beta Tattva, how we ourselves and everything else is inconceivably, that inconceivably is important, inconceivably simultaneously one with and different from Krishna. So one verse that came to mind as we were reading this purport, because you're talking about all the other devas, you have to, you've probably seen 10, temples like this, Hindu temples, where you have all the devas, right? You've got Kali, you certainly have Shiva, you've got Lakshmi Narayan, you may have Radha Krishna, there's a whole choice there, like Walmarts or something, whatever you want. So we're not like that, So there's a verse, a very important verse, I think it's in the 4th canto. I don't know if we've read it already. Maybe Narada Muni, I think Narada Muni speaks this verse. And Yata taro mula nishet charena tripyanti tat skanda bhujo pashaka prano bahara chayatendriyanam tataiva sarva hanamachyuteja. You've heard of this one before? Not so much. Just want to put it on your list. So, just as, it's one of these yata tata, giving you a nice analogy. Yata taro mula nishet charena. By watering the root of a tree, you nourish all of the fruits, flowers, leaves, branches, right? By feeding the stomach, you nourish all of the senses, right, the whole body. Similarly, by serving Achyuta, Krishna, all of the demigods become pleased, satisfied. You don't have to worry about serving them separately. And later on in the 9th chapter, after Krishna, here, this is one of the verses we're going to come on here in the next verse, where he's describing these worshippers of different gods. How they want, if you want to worship some god, I'll make your faith strong, and with that faith you'll worship him, and you may get some result, but you should know that result comes from me, and it's limited and temporary. So don't be a mudha and do that. Little brain substance. So in the 9th chapter, there's a similar passage where he roundly condemns demigod worship. Even if you go to heaven, to Indra's loka, and enjoy godly delights, then eventually your punya will become exhausted. Chine punya matya lokam vishamti. Matya lokam, reminds you that you come back down again to this world of death. He doesn't even say birth and death, world of death. So what progress did you make? None. Gadagatam. You simply go and come. So that's, but then the next verse says, Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana payupasane, those who worship me exclusively, yoga kshema v'hamyaham. This is a famous phrase. There's a whole pastime around it. I preserve what they have, and I provide what they lack, preserve what they have. In other words, I provide what everyone is after in this material world. Yoga and kshema. Yoga is what you need to live. Food, shelter, and accoutrements, various accoutrements. Kshema is the security, so that you won't lose it. So that personal security, safety, all of those things. Those two things are essential for happiness. Now, ultimately, you can't have them in this world. There's no security. Death is going to come and take everything away. But it's going to happen anyway. So why spend your whole life struggling to try to get something that you can't have? But Krishna will provide what you need and preserve what you have. Provide those yoga and kshema as you're performing your devotional service. In other words, the devotees don't waste their time exaggerating these material needs and trying to achieve something that's not possible in this world. They put as much energy as possible into developing their relation with Krishna, reawakening it, so that they'll return back to Godhead and no more birth and death. So this is this kamasthaisya jnana, that what covers our knowledge, what takes it away, is material desires. We already learned that in the 3rd chapter. Avitam gyanametina jnanam, this eternal enemy of kama, material desires, covers the original knowledge of the living entity. And takes over the senses and the mind and the intelligence, and we forget everything. So we're trying to remember who we really are, so we can act and aspire for what is truly in our best interest, which is reestablishing our loving relationship with Krishna. Okay. Any questions? Are you there, Tapas? Not tonight.
Yes,
okay. So did I do the right thing? I read that announcement.
Yes.
And you want me to leave time at the end too, right?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. So we'll go on. Text 22. We're on page 331. Satya Shuddhaya Yuktas Tasya Radhanamihate. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a verse. Text 21. I'm sorry. Yo yam yam tanum bhakta Shraddhaya chitum ichchati tasya chalam shraddham tameva vidadhamyaham. I am in everyone's heart as the super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady, so that he can devote himself to that particular deity. Purport. God has given independence to everyone. Therefore, if a person desires to have material enjoyment and wants very sincerely to have such facilities from the material demigods, the Supreme Lord, as Super Soul in everyone's heart, understands and gives facilities to such persons. As the Supreme Father of all living entities, he does not interfere with their independence, but gives all facilities so that they can fulfill their material desires. Some may ask why the all-powerful God gives facilities to the living entities for enjoying this material world, and so lets them fall into the trap of the illusory energy. The answer is that if the Supreme Lord as Super Soul does not give such facilities, then there is no meaning to independence. Therefore he gives everyone full independence, what everyone likes. But his ultimate instruction we find in the Bhagavad Gita, One should give up all other engagements and fully surrender unto Him. That will make man happy. Both the living entity and the demigods are subordinate to the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the living entity cannot worship the demigod by his own desire, nor can a demigod bestow any benediction without the supreme will. As it is said, not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Generally, persons who are distressed in the material world go to the demigods, as they are advised in the Vedic literature. A person wanting some particular thing may worship such and such a demigod. For example, a diseased person is recommended to worship the sun god. A person wanting education may worship the goddess of learning, Saraswati. And a person wanting a beautiful wife may worship the goddess Uma, the wife of Lord Shiva. In this way, there are recommendations in the Shastras, Vedic scriptures, for different modes of worship of different demigods. And because a particular living entity wants to enjoy a particular material facility, the Lord inspires him with a strong desire to achieve that benediction from that particular demigod, and so he successfully receives the benediction. The particular mode of the devotional attitude of the living entity toward a particular type of demigod is also arranged by the Supreme Lord. The demigods cannot infuse the living entities with such an affinity, but because he is the Supreme Lord, or the Super Soul who is present in the hearts of all living entities, Krishna gives impetus to man to worship certain demigods. The demigods are actually different parts of the universal body of the Supreme Lord, therefore they have no independence. In the Vedic literature it is stated, quote, "The Supreme Personality of Godhead as Super Soul is also present within the heart of the demigod. Therefore he arranges through the demigod to fulfill the desire of the living entity." But both the demigod and the living entity are dependent on the Supreme Will. They are not independent. So there's a little repetition here from previous purport. But the same idea is there, that, and I think we can expand this teaching here, this truth that Krishna is giving us, and that is, whatever you worship, even if it's not a demigod. We spoke this morning, I think, and yesterday about worshipping matter, a sad upasanaya. There's a kind of worship there. What's the basic principle of worship? You're approaching something that has some power to give you what you want. Okay, it could be a person, it could be the material energy, right? And you do what is necessary to get that benediction or that result from there. In case of the material energy, it's a certain kind of manipulation. You build up your knowledge. How do we do this? How do we do this? The whole technology, right? And the ultimate goal is, I'll get something, and that'll make me happy, right? So that's what Krishna is debunking, that idea in this series of verses. Now, when someone becomes a total materialist and simply worships matter, when there are plenty of people like that, scientists, and there's faith there. You have faith that if I do this, because here it says in the book, others before me have come this far, now I'm going to take it a little further, and we'll create this, and whatever it may be. It could be computers, it could be mining, it could be space travel, whatever, and we'll become happy. We'll get something that we want, and maybe has never been gotten before, whatever. So there's faith there. So these verses pertain to that also, because Krishna is going to say, or as he says here, I give them the faith. They want to worship with faith. They have to have faith. And I give them achalam shraddham. I give them unflinching faith. Because those who've gone before in this direction have achieved a certain thing. And then I see the logic of it, but I can carry it forward. I can create something new in some new computer program or something, robots, AI, whatever it may be, going down that same road. And so why shouldn't I have faith? It's been done before, I can't see God. I mean, those people who believe in God, that's just invisible. It's just, we're beyond that now, So they don't have faith in God, but they have faith in God's energy, right? And ultimately that faith is betrayed. In other words, they're going down a blind alley. In the beginning of the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada would always quote this verse, the 5th chapter, the instruction of Narada to Vyasa about writing the Bhagavatam, that you can't really increase your happiness that you do in this lifetime. It's already programmed in by what you did in your last lifetime. You may struggle very hard and it looks like, oh, I'm getting more money, like that. But money isn't what you're after. You're after happiness. You're after satisfaction. That's going to come whether you have $1 billion or $1 million or $5. It's already going to be there. And on the other side, there's going to be a certain amount of misery. So materially, you can't change that. And therefore, the next verse says, Tasyaiva heto prayate kovido nalabhite yad brahmadama prayada. If one is kovida, truly intelligent, you'll strive for what you cannot get from the Brahma Loka down to Patala Loka, wandering up and down. In other words, you'll strive for the spiritual assets, which won't be taken away from you with death. Those actually stay with you. Even if you don't, because it's paired with another verse. And that is that even if you very nicely perform all your duties in Varnashram, but there's no bhakti there, what do you gain? It's all taken away by death. But if you quit, if you join the Hare Krishnas, you give up your duties in the material world, and you don't go the complete course, you may bloop or whatever, still, where is there any loss? Because it all goes with you. That's the only thing you can take with you. The only thing you can take with you is your consciousness. That's what goes with you. That's who you really are. So everything else you have, your name, your fame, your money, your wife, your kids, your home, whatever you got, it all stays here. You go on to who knows where. So it's foolish. It's self-defeating, illusory, to struggle for material things in this world. Name, fame. What are those four? Janmaishya, Yashuddha. You're not going to be beautiful. Whatever beauty you have, whatever configuration of this bag of blood and guts, it's going to go anyway before you leave the body. So all of that is evanescent, transitory, temporary. And Krishna will make that very clear. And it applies also to worshipping the demigods for material benefits. That's also a misuse of human life, ultimately. So that's what the whole point of this is. But we have our little independence. If we want to worship this, worship that, or forget God and worship Mammon, Krishna will make our faith strong. But in the end, it's self-defeating. Okay, any questions or discussion on these points? Okay, these 4 or 5 verses here are the whole lesson, and we'll end up in a couple of verses. I think we can finish them tonight. Satya Shraddhaya Yuktas Tasya Radhanamiyate Labate Chatatak Kaman Maya Vyabhitanitan. Endowed with such faith, this is the faith he gave in the last verse, Achalam Shraddha. Tasyachalam Shraddha. Endowed with such a faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtains his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. Purport. The demigods cannot award benedictions to their devotees without the permission of the Supreme Lord. The living entity may forget that everything is the property of the Supreme Lord, but the demigods do not forget. So the worship of demigods and achievement of desired results are due not to the demigods, but to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by arrangement. The less intelligent living entities does not know this, and therefore he foolishly goes to the demigods for some benefit. But the pure devotee, when in need of something, prays only to the Supreme Lord. Asking for material benefit, however, is not a sign of a pure devotee. A living entity goes to the demigods usually because he is mad to fulfill his lust. This happens when something undue is desired by the living entity and the Lord himself does not fulfill the desire. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that one who worships the Supreme Lord and at the same time desires material enjoyment is contradictory in his desires. Devotional service to the Supreme Lord and the worship of a demigod cannot be on the same platform, because worship of a demigod is material and devotional service to the Supreme Lord is completely spiritual. For the living entity who desires to return to Godhead, material desires are impediments. A pure devotee of the Lord is therefore not awarded the material benefits desired by less intelligent living entities, who therefore prefer to worship demigods of the material world rather than engage in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. So this is part of the illusion that covers the materialist. He may know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he also knows that one of his names is Hari. He takes everything away. And so, being covered over, he says, well, I don't want to lose everything. I don't want to become like one of those Hare Krishnas, with 2 dhotis to my name, Forget it. I have ambitions in this world. So that's a very, that's material mentality. So he's afraid to worship Krishna. So he worshipped Shiva, and who's a great devotee of Shiva? Ravana. Ravana was a great devotee of Shiva. And so was Banasura. But Banasura's situation was a little different because he was a descendant of Prahlad, so he got some benediction. He wasn't killed by Krishna. He was cut down to size. You know the story of Banasura, Alex? He's the one who had 1,000 arms. Really good drummer. He would play 500 drums in perfect time as Shiva was dancing. And so Shiva was greatly pleased with that. But then he complained to Shiva. He says, I can't find anyone to fight with me. I've got all these arms. And so Shiva was a little angry with him. He said, you'll find someone to fight with you pretty soon. And Banasura was very happy to hear that. He was frustrated. He would bang his arms against the mountains because he was like, he needed to have some exercise. So eventually it was arranged, that Banasura's daughter, Usha, fell in love with Aniruddha before she even saw him. She was dreaming about him, and Chitralekha drew so many pictures of great heroes, and when she wrote him, oh yeah, that's the one. So this Chitralekha, she had mystic power. She was able to go all the way to Dwarka and bring Aniruddha to the palace of Banasura. I think it was Shonitapur. I think it was. Anyway, it was a big surprise, because he was really guarding his daughter. She had all these guards, you don't want the daughter to become polluted or anything. But then they said, wait a minute, she's having some kind of relationship here, She's described certain signs, So they arrested him with great effort, and then it was from Dwarka, all these great heroes came, Krishna came, Balaram came, and there was a battle. So most of the battle was between the Vishnu Dwar and the Shiva Dwar. The Shiva fighting Krishna, but they didn't fight directly. They had their weapons, So the Shiva Dwar is a heat weapon, but the Vishnu Dwar is a cold weapon. And the cold heat defeats the heat weapon. So finally the Shiva Dwar in the name of Shiva surrendered, And Banasura wanted to fight, so Krishna fought with him. He cut off 996 arms, left him with 4 arms, because he's a descendant of Prahlad, and he's promised to protect Prahlad's descendants. So he doesn't have the kind of status that Bali had. Bali was also acting like a demon, but he really was a great devotee. He became a Mahajan. So that's the difference between the devotees and the demons. So this endowed with the faith. So once you have the faith, you act on the basis of faith. Faith is an inevitable concomitant of action in this world. We learned that in the 17th chapter. Everything is pervaded by faith. You go to the store, you buy some potato chips. You have full faith that it's going to be, the same taste that I bought the last 20 times, right? And it's all money. It's all based on confidence and faith. Sometimes the value of money collapses. Like in Germany before the war, it was hyperinflation. You know what that is, right? You have $100, but it's worth 5 cents all of a sudden. So there's faith everywhere. That it's an inevitable being in this world. You have to work on. But directing your faith to Krishna, that's wise. But it's hard to come to that point because the real result is not material. If you're stuck on material results and tangibles, you won't appreciate devotional service. Okay, so with this faith they get. We didn't do 22 yet, did we? Yes, we did. All right, now 23. This is kind of the end of the lesson here on worshiping demigods. Andavatu palante sham tadbhavaltyalpameresam devan devi ajoyanti madbhakta yanti mamapi. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. Purport. Some commentators on the Bhagavad Gita say that one who worships a demigod can reach the Supreme Lord. But here it is clearly stated that the worshippers of demigods go to the different planetary systems where various demigods are situated, just as a worshipper of the sun achieves the sun, or a worshipper of the demigod or the moon achieves the moon. Balaram, you know the verse, 9th chapter. One who worships a god goes to the gods, one who worships the Bhutas goes there. Yanti Deva? Bhutani. Bhutani Yanti. Bhutani Yanti Bhuteja. Punchline? Yanti. Murad Yaji no Pimam. Yeah. So that's the same idea here. Whatever you worship, you worship matter, and you're going to go down. You're going to become covered more by matter. So that's what's being explained here. Similarly, if anyone wants to worship a demigod like Indra, he can attain that particular god's planet. And I don't know if I skipped a line here. Okay. It is not that everyone, regardless of whatever demigod is worshipped, will reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is denied here, for it is clearly stated that the worshippers of demigods go to different planets in the material world, but the devotee of the Supreme Lord goes directly to the Supreme Planet of the Personality of Godhead. Here the point, that's the same point made in the Bhagavatam, Tasabhaheto Prayate Kotita. Strive for something which you can't get in this material world. Here the point may be raised that if the demigods are different parts of the body of the Supreme Lord, then the same end should be achieved by worshipping them. However, worshippers of the demigods are less intelligent because they don't know to what part of the body food must be supplied. Some of them are so foolish that they claim there are many parts and many ways to supply food. This isn't very sanguine, in other words, isn't very intelligent. Can anyone supply food to the body through the ears or eyes? They do not know that these demigods are different parts of the universal body of the Supreme Lord. And in their ignorance they believe that each and every demigod is a separate god and a competitor of the Supreme Lord. Not only are the demigods parts of the Supreme Lord, but ordinary living entities are also. In the Srimad Bhagavatam it is stated that the Brahmins are the head of the Supreme Lord, the Kshatriyas are his arms, the Vaishyas are his waist, the Shudras are his legs, and all serve different functions. Regardless of the situation, if one knows that both the demigods and he himself are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, his knowledge is perfect. But if he does not understand this, he achieves different planets where the demigods reside. This is not the same destination the devotee reaches. The results achieved by the demigods' benedictions are perishable, because within this material world, the planets, the demigods, and their worshippers are all perishable. Therefore, it is clearly stated in this verse that all results achieved by worshipping demigods are perishable. Antavat means they have an end. And therefore, such worship is performed by the less intelligent living entity. Because the pure devotee engaged in Krishna consciousness in devotional service of the Supreme Lord achieves eternal blissful existence that is full of knowledge, his achievements and those of the common worshipper of the demigods are different. The Supreme Lord is unlimited, his favor is unlimited, his mercy is unlimited. Therefore, the mercy of the Supreme Lord upon his pure devotees is unlimited. So, this, lessons we can get from this is, as devotees, we're trying to keep our focus, on the eternal rather than the temporary, the unchanging rather than the ever-changing material world. And it's not easy because we're conditioned. Whatever identification we have with the body's changing at every moment. And we're accustomed to judging things, what is good, what is bad, according to how they can satisfy our temporary body and senses and give us some sense of security. But it's all a big illusion. It's a complete illusion. And we've been in that illusion for countless eons, and so many other forms of life. The human life is a juncture. It's the only form where, it's better than even the demigods, because if you're on Indraloka, it's very hard to become detached from all of that wonderful, sense gratification that's all around you. It's not ideal. The other is hell. It's too crazy there. Your anxiety, you're constantly, under duress. That's not good for practicing bhakti. Although, if you can chant Hare Krishna there and get out of there. Hell, just as in hellish situations here, if you're strong, you can do it. But it's not a good place to be a sadhana bhakta. Hell. So the Earth planet is, even in this age, just like here, even with all this pandemic and everything, we still have an opportunity to practice devotional service. Right? It's peaceful enough, so we have to take advantage of it, because it's a juncture. And so many, even in the human form of life, we can see all around us billions and billions and billions of people, and they haven't got a clue. To them, this is a dream world. But as we're reading in the morning, and tomorrow morning we're going to have the one of those examples of those 5 instances of a verse that appears in the Bhagavatam. It's a little different. This is the one that's a variant, but it's the same meaning. It pertains completely to this, and that is that Arto arte hividyamane pi sangsati nanavartate dhyayato vishayanasya swapte nartagamo yata. That in truth, the sufferings of samsara, sangsati, are unreal. They're like a dream. But for those who are meditating and absorbed in sense gratification, dhyayato vishayan asya, that dreamlike suffering does not end. Think of a nightmare. The only remedy for the nightmare is to wake up. It's not that we want to try to get another dream within a dream. That's also in the verse we heard, the swapna. The Prabhupada says the solution to a nightmare is not a hallucination, meaning don't try to cover it with some drug. That's not going to help you. You have to wake up. So that waking up, this is a very important part of it, is studying the Shastra, hearing and trying to apply the lessons, so that we see ourselves and see the world differently, and we do things that reawaken, uncover, and our original relationship with Krishna. That's already there. This is the one of the great values of understanding the truth about Krishna consciousness, is that we're not trying to develop some skill or some state that is not natural to us. Just like you may read about these gymnastics. They've had these girls' gymnastics where they, it's practically torture, jumping and doing things that really is not, proper at that age, for that gold medal, some gold medal. So it's unnatural, and everything in all this situation in the material world, even up to Brahmaloka, it's not natural for the spirit soul because it's temporary. So. Understanding that the great value of human life, we should strive as hard as possible for the eternal, to wake up from this nightmare of placing value on things that ultimately is just a lot of dust that's going to dissolve. That's what material life is all about, and wasting another, coming back for another term. So arte vidyamane pi sangsati nanavartate. That's a constant lesson, is that to recognize the unreality, the dreamlike quality, the mirage-like quality of things that seem pleasurable or attractive in this real world, and to, by Krishna's grace, turn our attention to those manifestations that have been given to us of the truth, which is all attractive, the ultimate absolute truth of the personality of Godhead. When you think about it, what is this ISKCON society, the whole process? Krishna is so kind, he makes himself available through his name. Right? And if you're able to simply chant that name with a little attention, then you'll be attracted, because Krishna is all attractive. There's so many confusions, but that itself will be the first glimmer of sunlight in your consciousness. And then you come into the association of devotees, and you actually meet persons, maybe a pure devotee who is really manifesting the qualities that are attractive because you've been chanting Hare Krishna, you're trying to be pure. And then the deities and the prasadam and the books and the festivals, it's all a real feast for the senses and the mind. And Christians manifested it all to attract us away from the fool's gold, of the material phantasmagoria, as Prabhupada puts it. So we should take advantage of that and do that. I'm sorry I took up all the time. Is there anyone out there with a burning question?
Yes, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
That's a familiar voice. Okay, quickly, because we're running out of time.
Okay, Prabhu, you said that the higher planets, we are better off. We can do bhakti better than higher if we are in higher planets. So my question is, if they are devotees and it's like higher planets, God has given, Krishna has given them a service, and they've done something good, or they're devotees, that's why they got the managing
Yeah, we're running out of time, Dhanavari. Those curtains are going to open. Sorry. I understand your question. The thing is that because it's so wonderful up there, that it's hard to really embrace this sense of Trinadapi Suni Chena. It's so wonderful, even though they're material devotees. They have a desire to control and so forth. But yes, Brahma, Shiva, everyone is up there as a devotee. But you were better off here, being humble and having nothing, and let Krishna take everything away and just call out with great love. Krishna, save me, like that. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you.
Sorry, I went over time. Carried away. There we go.